Alright, hey guys, we are going to be running Rabi-Ribi here. I am Mikan. I am doing commentary for VGM. He's going to have a little issue with microphone stuff and kind of noise in the background, so I'm going to be doing commentary for him while he runs. We are going to be running the Forgotten Maiden category of this game, so this is going to just aim for the fastest clear of the DLC. This isn't going to go into the whole 10 town members thing. It's not going to go into the post game at all. Just the strict goal of this is to get to the final boss as soon as possible. So it's going to be probably more than a couple glitches involved in that. So just getting a couple technical issues sorted out here, and then we will get started. promise we're getting everything worked out. We're gonna get it together, and then everyone's gonna watch Bunny, and it's gonna be great. I promise. I promise we're getting everything worked out. We're gonna get it together, and then everyone's gonna watch Bunny, and it's gonna be great. I promise. Alright, I think we are getting started here. VGM should be getting started here very shortly. Alright, we are off. So, if you haven't seen this game before, I'll just kind of start out with the basics here. So this is Rabi-Ribi. This is a kind of Metroidvania bullet hell style game, though you might not see any of the bullet hellness of this run until near the end of it, to be quite honest with you. You play as this bunny, Arena. She kind of hops around and picks up this hammer here, and is going to whack a lot of stuff with it. The hammer is a very nice weapon. It's kind of just your basic melee weapon. It does a lot of damage compared to the other weapon you get later on. You're going to be seeing it a lot here. So, this game is kind of broken up into chapters. We're in kind of the prologue state right now. We got to go through a couple kind of prologue-esque things here. We're coming up on the first boss even, who just kind of stands still and gets honestly completely destroyed by your hammer. It's very nice. You're going to be seeing a tactic, though you might not be seeing it too often right here. Might just appear very quickly here. So, starting off, you kind of have to level up your hammer. You don't have all your attacking abilities with it at the start of the game. Like, you get this drill attack that you can hop in the air while drilling upwards, and a down drill as well. You can do those, but we don't have those quite yet. We gotta beat up a bunch of stuff with our hammer first before we get those. Interesting to note, if you hit an enemy with the backswing of your hammer, it kind of does about double damage, so you're going to be seeing a lot of that during the boss fights. As few of them as there are. This is kind of a heavily glitched category once we get to the meat of it. So we took out our first boss, Cocoa, and here we are on our second boss already, Ribbon. After we beat up Ribbon here, she's going to function as our kind of ranged attack. She has kind of a laser that you can charge up, kind of like a Mega Man Buster, I guess you could say. You can see her kind of following both in front of and behind Arena here, charging up her blast, and it's going to be shooting it to take out stuff at range. It doesn't do nearly as much damage as your hammer, but it's definitely worthwhile to use as much as you can. And Ribbon actually upgrades just like your hammer does, so shooting stuff here at the start is going to level up Ribbon, help her charge faster, maybe do a little additional damage. We're coming up on these little bunnies here. It's kind of a little mini boss, and they're already dead. So we're going to do a little interesting clip here. Not really a clip, but if you enter this transition screen between the forest and the beach, if you enter it and face the opposite direction at pretty much the exact moment, it will kind of wrong warp you in the beach. As we just saw, it kind of just teleports you to the other side of the beach, and you don't have to go through any of that area. That skips the last prologue boss that is kind of a pain in the butt, so it's pretty nice to be able to skip it completely. It also skips getting the whole boost mechanic with Ribbon, so we're not gonna have that. That's okay though. Its functionality isn't too important for the small amount of time we spend in the run here. So now that we're out of the prologue and have made it to town, this is where the meat of the game kind of opens up. This is where Chapter 1 starts, and you kind of have free reign in the game to go where you want. This game is actually very open. In the base game, you're supposed to go find people to beat up to recruit to town. We call them town members. And in the base game, you would be recruiting 10 town members to open up the final area of the game. And blah, blah, blah. We're not doing any of that. So since the goal of this run is to get just to the final boss of the DLC called the Forgotten Maiden, that is our goal. So we're going to be getting the bare minimum in order to glitch into that area as early as possible. So, as open as this run is, and, you know, getting 10 town members and all, blah, 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 we're not going to be doing that. We're going to be getting 2 town members, in fact. And you're not going to be seeing quite the vast majority of this game, honestly. You see, there's a badge right on that little pedestal there. We're not going to be getting any badges this run. If you've seen a speed run of this game before, you'll be familiar with the attack trade badge, which gives you a hefty damage bonus at the cost of being able to taking more damage, but we're not getting that at all either. We're not picking up any badges, we're not picking up any extra items at all other than the ones that we need to get into the final area. We also did pick up the high jump there, the Rabi slippers, that lets us scale this area a lot more effectively. Oh, okay, never mind. We are picking up 1 extra attack up right here. I'm very slightly unfamiliar with this run, but the base game I feel like I know a good amount about. But, you know, to reiterate, since I kind of spoke about this before the run actually started, VGM is running, I am just commentating. He had some microphone issues that he couldn't do commentary for the run today. So IIvgmII doing commentary for VGM's run of Rabi-Ribi. Follow him if you like this game. This game is super great. We have actually a pretty active community for this game. We have a nice randomizer for this game where it's very silly. You can randomize some very, very funny things in the game here. So we're getting here over to Vanilla, which will be our first town member recruit here. Typically in a casual difficulty playthrough, people would go fight Rita first, which was to the left of the Rabi Park area we were at earlier. She is faster to get as a town member, but after fighting Vanilla up here, there is a teleporter in the graveyard area, which we absolutely need. So coming up here to get the graveyard teleporter and getting Vanilla on the way is just overall faster than going to pick up Rita and then, you know, having to scale all the way up here anyway. So there's Vanilla, time recruit number 1. You'll see at the top of the screen, actually, we have 2.5% items. This game keeps track of all your items. There's very few items actually that don't increase that counter, and that counter kind of acts like a general enemy level. You'll see there's a level indicator on bosses, and normal enemies actually have a value as well that they get that increases their damage and health and things like that. That item counter is not going to get very high this run. I'm pretty sure it's going to stay below 5%. It might not even get... I think 3.5 might be the maximum we get. Oh no. I'm trying to think here. I think we might get to 4.5. Anyway, here's Sassini. She kind of tries to hit you with her computer stuff and is dead already because everything in this difficulty is super fast, especially when you don't pick up things. So picking up items in this game does make enemies stronger and bosses, you know, take longer and things like that. But if you don't pick up anything, it turns out the bosses don't have very many stats. Since we have 2 town members now, we can start the chapter transition from 1 to 2, which involves fighting a boss who is already dead. I love these quick kills on these bosses that just take off. They just go down so quickly. That fight can be actually a really annoying thing. If you get hit, she actually inflicts you with an attack debuff, so the fight just takes even longer. So it's really important not to get hit on that boss. She actually does a lot of damage as well, though I don't think that'll be any problem. Okay, so we do pick up a second attack up, so we'll be at, I think, exactly 5% once we get to the final area here. We're going to take a small detour over here to pick up Bunny Whirl. So this is actually a aerial hammer attack. Arena kind of does this spin attack in the air that damages everything around her while she's in the air. And while it is useful for damage, we actually really need it in order to complete the run using the glitched method we do use here coming up. So with Sissini as a town recruit and being in Chapter 2, both give you access to this laboratory area. And she kind of sends you on this quest to go find her computer stuff, and that's cool and all. We're not going to do that. However, this area does hold a very important item, a very important movement item that we absolutely need to complete the run. I think almost every run of this game, almost every category of this game will come get this item pretty much as soon as possible, just because of how much mobility it gives you and its potential for zips and things like that. So here is the sliding powder, which lets us slide under small passages here, and also lets us slide jump to get a very nice increase in movement speed. We have to fight this mini-boss, Mr. Big Box. He kind of just stays on the left side there and goes down like a chump. The Rabi slippers actually make this laser scaling section here very easy to do. If you don't have the slippers there, if you don't have the high jump, getting up that place is actually pretty dangerous, because these lasers actually do a lot of damage. You can see his health's already at 14. I believe these lasers do 15 damage, so I might take a little bit of safety and wait on these lasers here before going through. Oh, okay, we made it through. So we're almost to the computer, what CC wanted us to do, but we're going to leave. Okay, this part's going to get a little weird. We're going to enter the Halloween DLC area, which is up near the graveyard. We're going to zip through this small passage here. We're going to come over here, and on these blocks, we're going to create a passage that we can zip through using our carrot bombs to blow open spots here. So he's going to carefully place bombs to open up specific sections, specific blocks that he can zip onto. If you jump on this spring as it's falling through, you get into this kind of state where you're inside walls. If you down drill, you can lower yourself down, which you kind of have to do. If you get to this spot right here, you can free fall through the map. Entering this transition screen from the wrong side sends you to a different place. We're going to fall through the Hall of Memories, which is a post-game area, tag a autosave on the way down, reload the save so we're actually back inbounds, and then we're going to proceed to zip over here off this corner by slide jumping into it, and that puts us at the final boss of the DLC area. Since we entered this boss fight from the wrong side, there's actually a pillar of blocks in the center of it, which is supposed to be like the boundaries of the boss fight. But they're kind of in the wrong spot since we entered the arena from a way you're not supposed to enter it. This boss fight is kind of long. You see that we're at almost 11 minutes 45 seconds now. This whole boss fight accounts for the rest of the estimates. Since we're at such an early stage in the game and have almost no items, her attacks deal very little damage. Do you know that we only have barely above 50 health, but her attacks should do maybe between 2 and 5 damage, which isn't too bad. There are checkpoints in this fight, actually. This is the longest fight in the game by far. They actually give you checkpoints in between the major phases of it. I think we will be reloading to abuse those just a little bit. Interesting to note that if you touch the boss at all, like, she will do contact damage to you and you will immediately die. That is a lot of damage to you. So it's very important to get close, to hit her with your hammer, but don't actually come into contact with her herself. The bullets are just fine, but running into her will absolutely take you out. I'm going to be abusing a lot of the reverse hammer hits here. Going to be swinging and then turning around for the second and third hits, because the backswings deal almost double damage. You can see half of her attacks just kind of whiff. They don't even like prompt you to dodge, because they just run into the blocks on the left side there. It's definitely not supposed to be in there. And you'll also see the boss just kind of run into them as well, because she has no idea what to do with the blocks there. This fight does have a couple auto-scroller mechanics to it. I say that because you can't knock her health down below 1. until a certain point in her attack cycle. I think this one specifically won't change until actually the music gets to a certain point, which is pretty funny. And it's actually pretty neat playing this casually, how this next part coming up syncs up with the music. Alright, and you can see that her health actually remains hidden until this point in the fight, and now that it has appeared, you can see that it's already a 1. So after this kind of short phase here where she starts attacking you with the music there, is going to be the soonest we're able to actually push this phase down. So at this point in the fight, is actually a checkpoint in the boss fight. Once the autosave appears, I think the autosave icon appears. Maybe you just kind of know when it happens. Once that appears, you can actually reload the fight, and it'll start you back off to where it would be at. This does give you a health refill, so that's pretty useful, considering we only have 52 health or so. I think it also pushes her to start the phase faster, because otherwise she would be jumping against those blocks in the center of the screen, which have been removed with the reload. So now we're in a more dangerous part of the phase where she actually uses a bunch of souped up special attacks that the other bosses in the game use. They are much more difficult versions of the attacks that the other bosses use. They usually get over with pretty quickly though, so you don't have to dodge them all for way too long before moving on to the next one. It's just the variety is pretty immense here of different attacks that she throws out. They all come very quickly. And you can see that, again, her health is already down to 1, so we're just kind of waiting for a specific spot in her attack cycle to actually push her down to start the third phase. Yeah, the reverse hammer hits definitely do a lot of work on this fight. You can see at the top of the screen, this is a mechanic that isn't used too much in this run. You could see a bar that has Arena on the right side and Ribbon on the left side. If you actually do too much damage with one specific source of damage, like if you hit her too much with Arena's hammer attacks, I believe you get a debuff that causes your attacks to become extremely less effective. And then if you end up doing too much Ribbon damage, I believe Ribbon actually loses all of her ability to do damage quickly. So you kind of have to balance the two damage sources of yours in order to not get those bad debuffs, which is more of a factor in the casual fight of this game. So here we're starting on the third phase of the fight. The boss kind of afflicts us with a bunch of different debuffs, one of them being 0 offense that actually makes us do exactly as you would think, do 0 damage. Thankfully there's a checkpoint right there at that point in the fight, so we can actually reload the checkpoint, and that does clear all the debuffs and refills us back to full health, and the boss starts again on the third phase, so we're immediately starting at full power without any of the bad debuffs. So this is the unique boss fight here. It's not, none of these attacks are, you know, copied from previous bosses like they were in the previous phase. These are all unique attacks, and the goal here is just to beat her down to 1 HP as soon as possible. She has a lot of attacks where she's airborne during them, so it can be a little difficult to actually hit her, considering that we only have the base magic type of Ribbon, which is the blue one, which can only hit at very specific angles. You can see PGM trying to jump and hit her with upward angled shots here. The Bunny Whirl we picked up is actually pretty useful for this phase, because some of the attacks she does actually stay within range of just jumping and hopping into her and hitting her with the hammer. Alright, we have gotten area down to, I believe it's actually 1 HP you need to get her to, so when she finishes the attack that she's on, it should kind of push into the next phase. I think that's how this works. I would assume so, because there's really no damage going on here. Alright. Alright, so the fourth final phase here is kind of just a slow bullet dodging part. You have to kind of survive this for 100 seconds, is what it is here. And then after the 100 seconds are over, all you have to do is hit her once, and then that will be it. There's a lot of really precise dodge movements that you would have to do here to dodge all these. Thankfully, since her attacks do little to no damage, you can kind of just hang out and tank all the hits, because you couldn't possibly take enough damage to kill you at this point. I guess you could if you had done the previous phases, the previous last phase, like a little sloppily. But I'm pretty sure we have enough health to where taking 1 or 2 damage hits, even repeatedly, isn't going to be too much of an issue. I'll tell you, after pushing through this fight casually, this fight is actually very soothing. Just the kind of the calm music going through, and the zoom in on the bunny, who's coming up very large here. Alright, here we go. Once that hits 0, use an amulet or jump and hit her, and then that ends the fight. And since we're in speedrun mode, it immediately kind of cancels the whole cutscene and everything, just places us back in town immediately. So it's a little anticlimactic, but that is it. And yeah, that is Rabi-Ribi Forgotten Maiden. It's probably the run that skips the most content in the game, because not only do you skip the entire main game and post game, you also skip all of the DLC as well, and just fight what I think is one of the best boss fights in the game. There's really not much we could do about the frame drops, I'm sorry. VGM's internet is a little clunky sometimes, but thank you for VGM for running that. And yeah, I guess stay tuned, because Yoshi's Island is coming up next.